Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles fell to 0-2 in the preseason after their battle in New England in their most heartbreaking 24-21 loss, probably to New England, to the Patriots, probably since Super Bowl 39. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Baron Morton hit Nick DeGennaro for a 37-yard touchdown with under a minute to go, as Ambry Thomas, I think, was expecting a safety behind him, didn't have one, and the Patriots took the lead. Cole Payton came out for his one and only drive, fumbled the ball, and the Eagles fell 24-21. What's going on, Connor? How are you?
Well, at the end of the day, what mattered most to me last week was those joint practices. And it has nothing to do with the craziness around A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. It had everything to do with the joint practices. To me, matter way more than these preseason games because you get to see the starters go against starters. Well, the Patriots were minus Christian Gonzalez, but for the most part, you see starters versus starters, and you really get to see what the teams are looking like and not giving your full cards away on from a play calling perspective, but we got to see a lot of really good things in the joint practices.
I will say, I don't know if you could tell I was being sarcastic with the way I mentioned, the heartbreaking 24-21 loss. But before we jump into that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter, Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell 54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. If you're joining us live in the chat, so let us know your thoughts on the preseason thus far, your thoughts on the offense. There is the open practice at the link tonight. I wish I could be there. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it. And then their game this week is Friday night. Roster cut down 6 p.m. Sunday. Since we won't be able to get a show in between the final preseason game and roster cuts towards the end of the show, we'll kind of go over the back end of the roster. We, for the most part, know the starters and probably 40-ish, 40, 45 guys that are definitely on the team. Obviously, other cuts, positions in need, safety maybe. The Eagles could potentially look to add, whether that's through trade, how he hasn't made one in August yet, which I think he's done for, 5 years in a row. Whenever cuts are made, so obvious, and then when they get to the making practice squad additions, which can be up to 17. All right, Connor. So you mentioned the joint practices. We heard really good things about the Eagles' running game. A lot of people were impressed or have been impressed with Chris Cooper. Everybody was worried that with Jeff Stoutland leaving and then bringing Chris Cooper, who didn't really do that well in Minnesota with developing guys, and he was in Denver with Fangio, so Fangio kind of knew him. They were worried that will he be able to develop? But this obviously the Eagles have really good starters when healthy. But when you talk about the backups, man, Willie Lampkin's making this team. He's really good. Markel Bell, rookie, could be the potential heir apparent to Lane Johnson at right tackle. Drew Kendall, center, guard, he's been making strides. Jake Majors making strides. The Eagles have a depth and obviously Fred Johnson, who has had starts in the NFL. The Eagles have depth on their offensive line behind the starters, and that's big, especially when Landon Dickerson missed time, Juergens missed time, Lane Johnson missed time last year. So that's big to do, and kudos to Chris Cooper, obviously following a legend, but he didn't let that faze him, and the Eagles right now are reaping the rewards. Now, it does help when you have good players, but when you're seeing that second string and some of those third string guys be able to help in the running game and move the football in these joint practices against the Patriots, that's definitely a sign of good things to come.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, I know that this offense, now that we're getting with the modern times of the NFL, is more offensive line friendly, and it gives, offensive linemen more help and more support, and they get to move out into space. So you're not necessarily put in the position like last year where you have to stand there and try and block and try and protect your quarterback or try and protect your running back who's running through the middle of the pack versus going outside zone or some different concept like we're seeing with Sean Mannion's offense. But it is huge to know because while it's offensive line friendly, the fact that you can pretty much sit there and say that there's 5 guys as backups who some of them could probably be reliable starters on some teams around the NFL is a huge thing. And we've always been able to kind of put our hat on that when it came to Jeff Stoutland and his development of players. And Chris Cooper, while he may not be able to develop to the same extent as Jeff Stoutland, and it might just be the concept that it's, a lot friendlier of an offensive line scheme, that's still shouldn't discount what he's been able to do with some of these guys. Like you said, we got the impression there was a reason that they picked Willie Lampkin up and broke that unspoken rule that Rams fans ragged on about last season. But obviously, if they saw the same thing that we're seeing in Willie Lampkin and protected him the way that the Eagles have protected him, there was clearly something there, and we're seeing it, that there is definitely something there, and it's so fun to watch him in space. So much fun to watch him. He plays literally, he is the definition of playing till the whistle. The whistle blows and he's driving a player through the turf. Like, it is impressive. It is fun to watch. And Markel Bell, I agree. There's things that are going to need work. There's some technique. He's very large, which makes it very difficult when you get up against a fast, bendy edge. We haven't seen him up against, starting caliber edge rushers, but it's a positive step that he's been able to make such strides, and he's got a year to learn from one of the best, develop his technique, develop his game, and at least set himself up to be in a much better spot than if he was coming in year one and had to be a starter.
Yeah, definitely. And, all the reports coming out of New England where the Eagles really ran the ball well against New England's defensive front. And they have Christian Barmore, they have Milton Williams, they have some decent players up front, and they're what a lot of people consider a top 5, top 8 defense in the NFL. Obviously went to the Super Bowl on the strength of an easy schedule, sure, and not having to face Bo Nix in the AFC Championship game, sure. But the Eagles still were able to run the ball really well against them. And they did it even in the preseason game with Will Shipley and Carson Steele, who really probably opened some eyes. They had a couple of hurdled plays, finished with 117 yards of total offense, a touchdown. So, they were able to do that. And it was against backup, sure, but you're able to see what this scheme can do. And now you just sit there and picture, what can Saquon and Tank Bigsby do in this scheme if they're able to get holes like that with the starting offensive line? And, the one thing you mentioned about how, this system is offensive line friendly. Well, if you think about other teams that run this system, they don't prioritize the offensive line like the Eagles prioritize the offensive line. So it makes you think, once Lane Johnson retires, if it's Markel Bell, he's going to be on a rookie contract. You can potentially have Willie Lampkin in there for Steen if Steen leaves after the year on a rookie contract. Will the Eagles maybe not prioritize the offensive line as much as they did in the past because of the schemes? Because the scheme's different. And let's be real. They're paying Jordan Davis. They're paying Jalen Carter. They're paying Jonathan Grenard. They're going to have to pay Quignon and Coop. Are we going to get to a point where they're going to take the money assets that they've been given to, say, the offensive line and put them elsewhere? Or are they still going to prioritize the offensive line? I tend to think that's just the way that the Eagles do it. The Eagles are always going to prioritize the offensive line, protecting the quarterback, always prioritize the backup quarterback. There's just certain positions that the Eagles prioritize. But if this system works the way everybody hopes it works, will they have to put all that money into the offensive line? You got one of the highest paid right tackles, one of the highest paid left tackles, one of the highest paid left guards, one of the highest paid centers. Right guard is the only one that's not really one of the highest paid. So, that's going to be something to kind of look at toward in the future if this system truly does work, and going forward, after the retirement of Lane Johnson, and who knows how much longer Dickerson's going to play. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch as we move forward. If all things stay the same and this system just continues to be the system that Nick Sirianni and the Eagles run.
Yeah, no, I agree. If Sean Mannion's system is a success, if the offense works this year, obviously you have to expect that going forward, you're going to change your expectation. Just like a defensive coordinator who runs a 4-4-3 versus one who runs a 3-4. You have to shift your focus and your attention to where you need the strengths to be. And if you don't need the strength to necessarily be along your offensive line, don't get me wrong. I feel like the Eagles are always going to prioritize the trenches in a way, but maybe not to the same extent. And I think it helps that we have Howie Roseman and we have Jeffrey Lurie who know how to manipulate the cap and do things that other teams are unwilling to do from a cap perspective and a payment perspective to players in free agency. So we may still see some decent sized contracts along the offensive line and some prioritizing of the offensive line. But to think that it would ever be to the same degree that it was under Jeff Stoutland, who clearly had major say and pull in the offensive scheme and the players that he wanted and the players that he got, similar to what we see with Vic Fangio in that defense. I mean, you're going to see periodically anchors of some sort. There's going to be a guy or two, but are we going to necessarily see to the degree, like you said, where across 4 of your positions, you've top 5 highest paid players at the position? Definitely, I agree. I think that we've seen the end of that in Philly. If all things considered work out with Sean Mannion and this offensive scheme continues to live on, which, to be completely honest, I hope it does. I think it should. It's where most schemes in the NFL are going. I don't see a reason to revert back to a scheme that worked for some but didn't work for all, as we saw the rotation of offensive coordinators that came in, some that got promoted and went on to do big things, and some who've gotten canned because they couldn't figure out the system or they couldn't work with the system the same way as more experienced offensive coordinators could. So I hope that this is a change for the future that sticks, because I think that we need to see that happen.
Thank you, Hertz Goat, for joining us. Thank you, Adams Exploits, for joining us. We're going to get to the linebacker room in a little bit. I will say, another person that, well, first, you mentioned how you think that we're going to stay. I think we're going to stay with a 2, but what if it doesn't work for the quarterback? Like, I think Jalen's going to be able to run it. I think Jalen, it will not look pretty, week 1 and week 2, but I do think eventually Jalen is going to be able to run this offense. But what if he can't? Are we talking new quarterback? Are we talking new system? Like, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, obviously, this is the last year that Jalen has guaranteed money, but the Eagles have won a lot with him and Sirianni. It's tough to not continue with that, but obviously, you kind of want the offense to come into the 21st century.
Well, exactly, and it would really suck for Sean Mannion in his first gig if the issue is the quarterback, because that's where the biggest question comes. You might see flashes of the offense and be like, man, I would love to see that offense more consistently. But if it's not happening consistently, it feels like the scapegoat is almost always the coach or the coordinator, because they can't get the most out of the quarterback. And that's the biggest issue, it feels like. And it's kind of an unfortunate reality, because it feels like Manny would be the one to go. Although, if you believe the reporting, if you believe the murmurs that were going around, like some of the Jeremy Fowler reporting and stuff, that, maybe they'd be willing to move on from Jalen Hurts if things don't work out after this season. I could see it both ways, but it feels like the coach or the coordinator seems to always be the scapegoat, because you don't see enough flashes or consistency in the offense to say, I can buy into this for future seasons. Let's move on from this quarterback. So I feel like the scapegoat ultimately would be Sean Mannion, because like you said, I think the biggest thing is Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts have won a lot. It's hard to win in this league and to consistently win in this league if it's a matter of having a boring, monotonous offense and just finding the right coordinator to be able to call the plays within that offense. I guess the reality for us is, so be it, because like me and you've said so many times on these shows, I am fine with Jalen Hurts throwing for 150 yards and 1 touchdown and us winning the game because we jammed the ball down, and other teams throw with 250, 300 plus rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Totally fine with that. I'll take it every day if it means wins, and it means Super Bowl appearances, and it means Super Bowls.
I definitely agree. Going on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, there were reports again, Jalix Hunt is going to be a player. Again, he led the team in interceptions and sacks last year. But, I mean, he had 4.5, 5 sacks last year, 3 interceptions. You want those numbers, obviously, to be leading when those categories, whoever's leading those categories for the team, to be higher. But, like, he's been living in the backfield. He lived in the backfield against the Patriots. He's been making plays during camp with the Eagles, in Philly. So, I mean, he's in store. And everybody's like, oh, Nolan Smith's going to be the one that potentially gets the big contract. It looks like it's going to be Jalen Hunt, and Nolan Smith might not be on this team in a year or two. So it's going to, I mean, I'm very intrigued with the development and with the continued progression of Jalen Hunt. And when you're playing next to Jalen Carter, who's going to get double teamed, Jonathan Grenard, when he's healthy, hopefully he'll be healthy for week 1. We don't know. There, obviously, Vic Fangio, I don't have a filter, speaks his mind and doesn't think he's going to be ready for week 1. But when Grenard can get healthy, like if Grenard can do what he's done in the past with Houston and Minnesota, that means eyes going to have to go gear towards him too. Like you're going to leave Jalen Hunt one-on-one. And as Adam says, he's a beast and he thinks he's going to have 11 sacks this year. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he had double-digit sacks. So I'm very intrigued to see his progression and see how he can continue. And I love his demeanor. Like Dave Spadaro interviewed him during the game, and he had asked him a question like, what's been good about camp and this week? And he said, well, Joshua Weiroo just got a sack. That's the best thing that's happened. Like he's all about his teammates. So I can't wait to see what he does. And I think this is going to be a top 5 defense in the league. They're really good. This is the third year under Fangio. What they're going to add when you have 3 legit corners. I know Tariq Woolen sometimes might lollygag out there or whatever, but when he's on, like he had what would have been considered a pick 6 against the Patriots in the joint practices. If they can figure out that safety position, Andrew McCuba, Marcus Epps, if they decide to bring somebody in, we know that they're deep at linebackers. Hurt Goetz says that, very good linebacker room. When you have Zach Baun, you have Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. can start anywhere. So, I mean, and looking at the depth, keep going, Smal Munden, Brandon George, Campbell, like they have a lot of guys that can play. And everybody's talking about, Trotter deserving to start. And does he deserve to start? Probably does. Like this is going to be his 3rd year, I believe, in the system. Does he deserve to start? Sure. But I think when it comes to Trotter, him starting is more next year because I don't know if Zach, and I think I said this last week, I don't think Zach Baun's back next year. So your starting linebackers next year could be Trotter and Campbell. And I think that they pair like a lot better than, say, Baun and Trotter. I mean, Trotter had that blitz where he timed it up so perfect. He almost took the handoff from DeVito, but he sacked him. Like as soon as he got to that hole, like DeVito had the ball snapped to him, sacked him literally within like less than a fraction of a second. It was insane how he timed that. And I think he can kind of do the similar things that Nakobe Dean did for the Eagles. And I was sad when Dean went to the Raiders. Glad he went to the Raiders rather than the Cowturds. But it was, I think that what Dean was able to do for the Eagles, Trotter and Campbell are also going to be able to do for the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like this year, situationally, do Jahad Campbell and Zach Baun bring that blitzing element, that inside football IQ and presence like Nakobe Dean brought? Probably not, but there's a world where I can see Jeremiah Trotter situationally being a really good linebacker for this year who could see, 15, 20% of snaps depending on how things go and depending on specific situations with Vic Fangio, because we know Vic Fangio isn't afraid to shift his personnel around, take the best guy off in a specific situation where he's reading a specific play where he wants to dial up a blitz or something. He's not afraid to pull a Jahad Campbell or Zach Baun off to bring in Jeremiah Trotter and make sure the play is going to work the way he envisions it to work. So, I mean, there's people out there who are like, trade him for a third, Jeremiah Trotter, trade him for a third, trade him for a fourth. I think that would just be so ill-advised by the Eagles and so short-sighted to move on from Jeremiah Trotter just because he's having a really good camp. He deserves to start somewhere else, so go ahead and try and get a day 2, early day 3 pick out of him. I don't think you see Howie Roseman make such a rash decision like that unless he's blown away. If someone blows him away, if you get someone coming knocking on your door and saying, I'm going to give you a second for Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I wouldn't be surprised if he might pull that trigger. But I agree with you. We know there's a shift of where the spend is going to be. Zach Baun had a great year, had a great couple years in the Fangio system. He earned his dues. He got his contract extension. But just like we're seeing a shift in the offensive line, a lot of the money shift into the defensive line. Where do you find the money for Jalix Hunt's extension? What about Q? What about Cooper DeJean? Maybe it is realistically moving on from Zach Bond, and that depth definitely helps. Like you said, Smell Munden and Deontay Lawson, like they've kind of been overshadowed because of how good Campbell has been, because Bond's still there, how great Jeremiah Trotter's been, but they're still there. They're still making plays, and their name is still popping up across X feeds and in videos of them making plays. So they are guys who are out there and doing things and continuing to develop their game to a degree that they could ultimately end up impacting this defense in the future. But like you said, there's going to be a shift in the mentality of how Howie has to think and how Howie has to spend going forward. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because those players who don't have much or have no more guaranteed money are the ones who are most likely due to ultimately be traded or cut post June 1st, pre June 1st to make the cap room, to make some bigger financial splashes and decisions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But this defense, I agree with you. I think it's going to be amazing. Like, what do you do now with Moro Ojomo? Like, if Vic Fangio is going to stick around, you can pay Moro Ojomo if Vic's going to stick around for 2 or 3 more
Not
years.
if he gets the same type of contract that Milton Williams gets.
Well,
which I don't think he'll get that much, but he has a chance to make some bank.
And oh yeah, no, I agree. I don't know if he'll get that much, but because obviously Davis and Carter steal some shine. So how many plays can Ojomo make, and what do people see? Do people see enough to pay him big and think that he can anchor their interior defensive line? But I mean, Ty Robinson's emerging. Byron Young's doing well.
He had a big game.
Like Ty Robinson's job was on life support. Now suddenly it looks like, obviously, actually, it's not suddenly. Now he's a lock. There's no way you say Ty Robinson doesn't make the roster. And I get it. He's playing against second, third, and fourth string guys, but he is a backup as well. So realistically, if he's making these plays against the guys he's supposed to make these plays against, he deserves his spot on the roster. He's earned his spot on the roster. And then Uar Bernard, I get it. It's not pretty. But man, the guy hasn't played more than 30, 40 snaps in the NFL. There's a good chance you have to, I don't want to say burn a roster spot, but you have to use a roster spot on Uar Bernard, keep him safe, keep him protected. Because
what about Joshua Weeru? Because he has some really, I don't want to use the word elite, but he seems to have a lot of athletic ability coming off that edge. He had his first sack.
I think you end up probably keeping them both. Like, Epinesa has been around the league, but if you expose him to waivers, are we certain Epinesa's getting picked up from somebody?
I think we're going to talk about this, but I do think Epinesa and Weeru both make it. I think Bernard's going to come back on the practice squad. That's just me.
Yeah, it depends what people see. Like Bernard, he goes and it's straight up. You can tell he's trying to use just his pure raw power. And if you can add some move where he's batting arms down or he's swimming, he adds some technique to his game, I think he can be really special. Right now, all it is raw power, and he's just taking 300-pound men and just walking them back into the pocket, which is very impressive. So it'll be interesting to see. It depends, I guess. You decide who is worth risking. Who do you think another team won't see the value in? And I agree with you. Edge is so important in today's NFL. And Waru kind of shows the speed. Now you add a little bit of technique, whereas Bernard shows pure power, but technique might be harder to add at the interior defensive line position.
I think the bigger question becomes other positions, because tonight at the link, Landon Dickerson, Markel Bell, and Eli Stowers aren't practicing. I thought they could potentially keep 3 tight ends, and it would have been Goddard, Munt, and Stowers. You might have to keep 4 now, because Stowers is not playable yet. I mean, did you see those couple of clips where he couldn't get any separation from any of the DBs for the it was bad. Like, he was super glued to them. So, and then now I know Andy Dalton was throwing him passes and they weren't good passes, but he didn't catch it. He didn't catch anything on Saturday. And, Stone Smart was getting plays that you thought should have been going to Eli Stowers. So that's not a good look. And I get it. Even if you go back to Goddard and you go back to Ertz and you go back to these second-round tight ends that the Eagles have brought in, or even the second-round tight ends around the league, they don't get big numbers. So we're not expecting Eli Stowers. So I think Eli Stowers is more of a 2027 guy. But you can't release him to put him on practice squad, because somebody will definitely pick him up. So you're gonna. I don't want to, again, for lack of a better term, you might have to waste a roster spot on Eli Stowers, or put him on have a phantom IR stint where he's eligible to return, 6-7 weeks down the road.
Maybe that's what they're priming him to do. And maybe this, not having him go out there, he's suddenly there's some injury, some nagging injury. Maybe they do give him the phantom IL stint, and maybe he does miss part or all of the season so that they can attempt to develop him. But I mean, you like to see flashes, at least from these guys. And I know the tight end position's hard in the NFL, one of the harder positions it feels like to translate from college to the NFL immediately. But as long as developmental trends seem to be 2-3 years that the tight ends settle in and get their things going. I think my issue with Eli Stowers is I just don't, I can't defend the complete inability to block. For at least the first 3 seasons in the NFL, you have to insulate him with a guy like Johnny Mund, who's going to be able to go out there and be your blocking tight end. That's a reality. He's not, based on everything I've seen, he ain't picking it up this year. I don't think that Stowers is going to pick it up as a blocker next year. And in some cases, sometimes tight ends who are purely receivers never figure it out as blockers. Are you going to have to insulate them forever? Which is fine, which is absolutely fine as long as the Eagles realize that and do that. Because look at the Grant Calcaterra situation last year. They put Calcaterra in for Dallas Goedert with no other insulated block help support as a blocking tight end. And Calcaterra was horrible. The offense ran so much worse without Dallas Goedert there. So as long as the Eagles realize that, and it feels like if this offense scheme sticks, it will require 3 or 4 tight ends, one of them specializing in purely blocking and making periodic plays when their number is called upon in the receiving game. And that feels like a Johnny Mund and other people coming on in the future. But it is frustrating, the Stowers situation. And then the Mekhi Lemon, he's back. He's making some play. It's nice to see him making plays right out of the gate, but it's frustrating to see that, that soft tissue injury, like same leg, lingered, came back and caused him issues. And we can only hope that it doesn't cause him issues as we roll into the regular season and he can be out there and playing. I mean, for now, I think he's insulated well with like Darius Cooper, who's been amazing, Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore. There's guys who can cover for him, but he was your first round pick. You got to see a little bit out of him.
I mean, he has they're putting him right in with the starters. So if he's healthy, he's going to play, and it'll be interesting. They're not going to play him against the Bengals this week, and I don't think they should. But his first action is going to be Sunday, September 13th, 4:30 against the Washington Commanders. So having his first action be a regular season game could be interesting. So the injury report for tonight: Markel Bell is out, not practicing with a thumb leg. Jacorian Bennett not practicing with a knee. He's probably not going to make the team. Grant Calcaterra out with a back. Landon Dickerson's just out with rest. Jonathan Jones out with a shoulder injury. Eli Stowers, hamstring injury. Cole Wisniewski, a concussion injury. And limited Mac McWilliams with a shoulder injury. So they're the injuries at the link tonight for the practice. Neither of us are there, unfortunately. I wish I could have been there. I missed the days. I'm going to go back. I missed the days when they held training camp at Lehigh University, and it was open up, free. You can go there. They did. Andy Reid ran 2-a-day padded practices. Now, obviously, it's totally different now. And then, I wish, again, I miss when they had their open practices on a weekend, not during a week. It was on a Sunday. But no, let's have it on a freaking Tuesday night. So, and looking at these pictures on Twitter, the whole lower bowl is all sold out. So that doesn't surprise me.
Never surprises me. Eagles fans get so excited for these. It's no surprise at all.
Yeah. And of course, the tickets cost $10, which benefited the Eagles Autism Foundation. All the money went to that. The outstanding venture, the outstanding stuff that Jeffrey Lurie and company do to help battle autism. All right. So the Eagles face the Bengals on Friday night, and then they do the cuts. All teams have to do the cuts down to 53 by Sunday night. Obviously, none of the starters are going to play on Friday. It's their only home game. It's the first and only preseason home game this year. What are we doing at the backup quarterback? I think it should be Tanner McKee. I don't know. I think Howie may have overthought this trading for Andy Dalton. I think maybe he said, we get Andy Dalton. They both play well. I'll be able to trade one of them, and the other one can be the backup. But they both haven't really. I mean, Tanner McKee has played better than Andy Dalton, but Andy Dalton has started the first 2 preseason games. Are we going to see that happen again? Do you want to see more of Cole Payton? What are your thoughts on the quarterback position?
Well, I think at this point, you you put Cole Payton out there for sure. You continue to see what you have in him. I think obviously he's going to be back on the roster. They see something in him. Obviously, he had the fumble last game that sucked, but there's something there. There's flashes there. There's reports of a lot of interceptions by him, but to the same degree, reports of him doing some special things. But you expect that you drafted him as purely a developmental guy. I agree with you. I think it should be Tanner McKee. I posted on our Twitter earlier in the week that if there is a team sniffing around, a sixth or a seventh for Dalton would do it for me. Andy Dalton, at this point, in my opinion, should be in a retirement home. He shouldn't be on a football field. I think his time is up. And it's not like you need the veteran presence. Your veteran presence in that quarterback room is your starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts. He's no longer 22, 23 years old. He's 29 years old, Jalen Hurts. Like, this guy has played a lot of games. He's won a lot of football games. That's your veteran presence. You don't need Dalton to help train up Cole Payton or get more out of Tanner McKee. No, that's not necessary. He might see the game differently, and that might be something that you like, the perspective that Andy Dalton brings. But I mean, if the perspective Andy Dalton brings is what we're seeing when he's seeing the football field and what he's doing on the football field, I think I can live without that perspective anywhere near our sideline. So I do agree with you. I don't think, barring some sort of injury at a team starting or backup quarterback position, I don't see any team looking to McKee or Dalton and saying, we want to trade for you. I think they're going to have to make a decision. And that decision, I think Howie was smart in getting the Panthers to eat some money, because I think that's why he got the Panthers to eat some money, so that if things didn't work out, he could just straight up cut him at the end of training camp. And that's, to be honest, that's what I think is the right decision and what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Tanner McKee, and I think that Hurts, McKee, and Peyton will be the three quarterbacks. Going to running back, we won't see Saquon and Tank Bigsby. I thought I was huge on the Dameon Pierce signing, but he's done nothing. I don't even know if he's been practicing. So it's probably going to be Will Shipley. But I think the big question is, do they keep four? Carson Steele looked good. I thought they were going to bring Carson Steele in to be some type of like fullback, but no, he's a running back. Do you think he has the opportunity to make the team? I don't know. I just don't know if the Eagles are going to want to keep four at running back, especially when you might have to keep an extra tight end. Or you might have to, like you said, maybe quote unquote stash Weru or Bernard or both on the roster on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think when you look at the offensive line and the defensive line and the edge position, I think it makes it almost impossible for them to keep four tight ends and four running backs. I think they're going to ultimately end up making the call on one of those two positions and saying, okay, we're going to take three and hope one makes it back through. Because there's a world where, and we're not big Will Shipley fans here, but there's a world where I can see you exposing Steele to waivers and getting him back on the practice squad. I don't think, given Shipley's experience, especially on special teams and as a returner, that you see Will Shipley make it through waivers and you can bring him back to the practice squad. I think someone would see an opportunity to get a decent third or fourth running back who prioritizes a running back position maybe a bit more than the Philadelphia Eagles, because like you said, we have Barkley and Bigsby who are going to eat up 95% of running back snaps this season. You're not going to see Shipley or Steele unless they're contributing for the most part in blowouts or on the special team side of the ball. And I think that that's where it benefits Will Shipley, is he has the experience. As much as we may loathe it at times, he has that, special teams experience. It's going to keep him on the roster. And unless they can phantom IR Stowers, you have to keep four tight ends, and Stowers is going to be one of those guys. But I feel like they're leading towards Stowers getting the phantom stash, and I hope it goes that way, because then they can go ahead and do Goddard, Munden, Latu, or Stone Smart, or EJ Jenkins, anyone but Grant Calcaterra, pretty much. And you can, as your third tight end to keep on roster. But yeah, I don't think you see four tight ends and four running backs kept, especially with the decisions you have to make at basically the depth of the offensive line and the depth at almost name the position on defense. There's some guys who've stood out enough that you can keep them over Carson Steele or Will Shipley or, Grant Calcaterra, and you can justify very easily.
I really hope Grant Calcaterra is not back with something. I have like a sickening feeling unless the tight end gets, DeQuan Wright would look good, but he's back in college, which I still think is ridiculous that he went through. He got signed by the Eagles, got cut, got signed by the Browns to participate in a preseason game, is now back in college.
Listen,
that's a different story for a different day.
I don't ever want to make the podcast political, but if there was one bill I want to see make it through on the United States floor, it is the Save College Sports bill, because that has got to happen, because this is insane. These guys are going back at 25, 26 years old. I think the 5 and done eligibility makes it as crystal clear as you can be. You play your 5 years and you are done. And if you choose to move on to a spot like the NFL or the NBA, there ain't no coming back to college. Like, that's just crazy. These people aren't coming back and taking classes and stuff. They're playing football. They're just coming back because they can make more money there.
Did you hear Rocco Beck say he's taken one online class?
And
that's it. He's like, I'm here for football.
That's all you need to do. You can pretty much say, I just want to take this accounting class because I'm going to maybe be an accountant in the future. Even though we know you're going back because they're going to pay $500,000, and a practice squad job at the NFL level ain't paying you that. So you already know, like, that's my perspective on it. Somebody needs to step in and save college sports, and it ain't going to be college sports programs.
The last thing I'll say about it, I'm all for college athletes getting paid. I'm all for that. But this whole transferring every year, and just because you're not that is where things need to change. And hopefully somebody smart.
If weight loss has felt like a losing battle, this summer can be different. Skip the guesswork and try Weight Loss by Hims. Access an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen, plus the support to actually stick with it. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Through Hims, everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/FFSN to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/FFSN. hims.com/FFSN. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com.
Something big is coming. On September 2nd, DraftKings Game Day arrives with massive deals, exclusive offers, and an all-day celebration built for sports fans. The countdown has begun, and all roads lead to Game Day. So whatever your favorite sport is, DraftKings has you covered. So get ready to celebrate a new season, as new DraftKings customers get $200 in bonus bets when they sign up with code PINPULL and spend $5 within 21 days. That's code PIN, P-I-N, PULL, P-U-L-L. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Pennsylvania only. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 in non-withdrawable bonus bets issued every 7 days via click-to-claim for 21 days. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer. I've never been a nicotine user, but I'm always looking for ways to improve my focus and my energy, especially when I'm working out or I have a lot of work to get done. And I don't always want to rely on caffeine to help me get there. That's why I've been using Ultra pouches. They're 100% nicotine and caffeine free, but they still give me a noticeable boost in focus and energy without that jittery feeling or a later crash. So I'll pop one in 5 minutes before a workout or when I'm sitting down to grind film study and I really need to lock in. And I love that I get that energy boost without the cup of coffee in my hand. My favorite flavor so far is the Cool Mint, but it comes in multiple flavors: watermelon, citrus, blue raz. If you want to try them, new customers can use the code PIN, that's P-I-N, and get 15% off at takeultra.com. That's takeultra.com, code PIN. And when they ask where you heard about Ultra, please tell them the Eagles Pinpull Network sent you.
Before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. For instance, can the Pittsburgh Steelers win at least 9 games this season? If the Steelers do, they're currently trading at 45% probability. A $100 trade pays out over $200 if the Steelers reach just 9 wins. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use code FFSN to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade $25. KALSHI. Kalshi. Trade on anything.
Figures that out. Or the NCAA is a really corrupt organization, let's be honest. And if they keep running things, I don't think anything will change. But let's get back to the Eagles. I'm sorry I brought that up. What was I saying? So on the, I want to talk about wide receivers real quick. We know Devontae, Lemon, Wicks are all definitely safe. The question becomes, do they keep 6 or do they keep 5? Because Darius Cooper, Hollywood Brown, and Elijah Moore, I think if they keep 6, that's it. But if they only keep 5, do they keep Brown? Do they keep Moore? They don't have, and again, you're not going to get somebody that replicates what A.J. Brown does, but they don't have that big-bodied receiver unless they think it's going to be Wicks. But like Darius Cooper's the biggest, I think, of the receivers, and that's, I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think Darius Cooper's 6'1", 210, 215, something like that. Like he's not very big. Like they have one of the smallest receiving cores in the league. But I think that, that this scheme calls for that, and this scheme gets the most out of guys who are like that. I think they keep 6, and I think it's just basic down the board: Wicks, Smith, Lemon, Moore, Brown, and Cooper. And then I was just looking at how they've been managing kick returns. I hate it. But let's face it, Britton Covey's going to be back as a punt returner, and it is the most infuriating.
I don't think he is.
So far in it, but my issue here is, unless we see something dramatically different, he has been the only player to return a punt in the preseason. If you were really considering somebody else to return punts, would we not have seen somebody else return punts by now?
Well, have you seen every we haven't seen every. You don't know if they're doing it in practice. So
maybe
I honestly don't think that he's a lock to make the roster.
I think if I remember seeing a report at one point, Elijah Moore, I think, returned punts at some practices as well. So at the end of the day, I think Covey comes back through. If they cut him, he comes back through on the practice squad, and we could see him elevated at times if needed, because they really value him being, a punch and bag on punt returns. And then on kick returns, the only 2 who've done anything is Watkins, who is absolutely not coming back on this team, and Zukanama. But I can see Zukanama and Covey or Watkins, any combination of those 3.
So maybe
it back
Covey
to the
is on the practice
squad,
but he's not making the initial cut.
No, he shouldn't.
Quez Watkins, I don't know what their infatuation is with him. He better not make it. Every time the ball gets thrown to him, something bad happens.
I didn't think there's even a reason to have Watkins back. Like you see the way he's been reported on in practice, it's not good. He's not making plays. He's not doing anything. But Philadelphia, it's Grant Calcaterra, Quez Watkins, Britton Covey. You see this, they're used to these players. They like these, but they drafted these players. They're so connected and intertwined with these players. They know the offense. Now it doesn't matter. It's a brand new offensive scheme. They know Britton Covey will go back there and take absolute mammoth shots on the punt return to keep a job in the NFL. That's just a reality with the Eagles. They're comfortable with certain guys, and it's always been a thing. Every year we come on this podcast and we sit there and we're like, why is this guy back? Why do they keep bringing this guy back? And it's just a reality of how they do things with the Eagles.
All right, let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Were you at all worried that A.J. Brown had a really good week of practice last week? I know on the first play, Quinyon was able to break it up, and I know he tried a lateral that ended up getting intercepted by Jalix Hunt, and then there was a pick 6 that was going to A.J. Brown that Reek Woolen took to the house. But he was able to have big plays against, I think, all the corners. Reek and Q. Was that an issue, or is that just we kind of expected AJ to have a big week because he's going up against the Eagles guys. He knows, besides Reek, he knows the weaknesses. And he just wanted to show that look, I'm not washed. And what bothered me the most is it was very apparent that he put zero effort into last year. And that bothers me a lot. That's the only thing that I love AJ Brown. I wish AJ Brown was still on this team, but you could tell he didn't put any effort into last year, especially the playoff game against the Niners.
Oh, yeah, you can tell for sure this man went all out for joint practices, but couldn't give us an all out showing post week 2, week 3 last season. Like that speaks volumes to he was done, he was tapped out. And like you said, are you going to replace AJ Brown with any of the aforementioned wide receivers that we just spoke about? Absolutely not. Can you maybe replace that production with 2 or 3 of them? Absolutely. But you're not replacing that production with AJ Brown. You're not getting that talent like an AJ Brown from any of those guys. Maybe Mekhi Lemon does things in the future, but you're not at year one getting that direct 1-for-1 replacement, nor do I think any of these guys are ever going to be that 1-for-1 replacement at any point in their career, except maybe Devontae Smith. But Devontae Smith's got locked down his own production and make up for his own production from prior years as well. So that was frustrating to see. It's not concerning though. I think I posted on our Twitter feed throughout it all that everybody gets the better of each other. All the elite talents get the better of each other at one point or another when they face each other during their careers. You go one-on-one with a guy, call it 10, 15, 20 times across 2 days. Each of you are going to get the better of each other. Reek had an interception on a play against AJ Brown. Reek had some good plays against AJ Brown. That play where Drake May threw it up and it was out of bounds, but Patriots fans are like, oh no, that was in. Reek had a great play. Reek watched it through and pushed AJ Brown, made it so it was not a completed pass. And then obviously we know that Q had an interception and some good plays. They've had some good battles. And that's the reality of it. You put guys one-on-one against each other 100 times, I bet you will call each of them a winner 50-50, especially when they're the elite of the elite talent. So am I surprised? Absolutely not. Am I worried? Absolutely not. It goes both ways. But the thing that became apparent to me as well, AJ Brown gave up on this team. AJ Brown wanted out of Philadelphia, and that was infuriating to know and to really realize. Like, you saw the report and people were like, oh, he wants out. He clearly wants out. And me and you, we defended it up until May 31st, saying, nah, is it real? Like, we're not really going to do this. This isn't really going to happen. And then it actually happened. But I think what we defended is he's not washed. He is still uber talented, and he's absolutely going to produce at the NFL level for at least, I think he can do it for 2 more years. How happy he is with the team seems to be the deciding and indicative factor of how well he produces over the next year or 2. But this year for sure, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 1,510 TDs.
That would hurt a lot. And I will say one thing. I don't care how the Patriots do this year. I mean, whatever, but the 2027 season, because we get their 2028 first, or we get their first round pick after the 2027 season. Let's hope they go like 1-16, because then we can get another one overall pick.
One added thing, sorry to cut you off, from the perspective is I'm not worried about the starting corners. I am very worried about our backup corners.
I was going to move to the corners next. Yeah, I was going to move to the corners next. We obviously like Coop. We obviously like Reek. We like Q. We like our starters. But Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, who's hurt, Mac McWilliams, who's limited. Like, the depth is not good at all. That is an issue.
Ringo's going to be back. So I think when they cut JT Gray, that was the indicator Ringo's going to be back. And I'm like, man.
JT Gray's a safety. They play 2 different positions. But
that's true.
He was a special teams guy, and he got cut. Jonathan Jones, we haven't seen much of him, and maybe he does make it. Michael Carter's going to be a hybrid. He's going to be back there at safety most of the time. I like Sean Wade. Does he have a chance to make the team? I don't know, but he's forced 2 fumbles, 1 in each game. He's a former 5-star recruit out of Ohio State, was in the UFL last year. I wouldn't mind seeing him make the team. Like, but obviously, if we have to go to any of these guys, like, then the season's in trouble. Let's be real. Especially with the safety combination, especially with the safeties that we're going to have back there.
If there's any injuries in the secondary, Howie absolutely has to be shopping that Monday or whenever we play a game. Well, that Monday or Tuesday, no matter what, he's got to be shopping that Tuesday and going to find something to help this out. I mean, I wouldn't be hurt if one of those guys who people are like, I think he should make it, give him an opportunity. If Howie says, no, we're not giving that opportunity, he goes out and gets some sort of veteran who's either cut or still presently a free agent. I can see a world where that happens, and I'd be totally okay with it. But yeah, we're in trouble if we have to lean on any of the backup secondary. These 5 men, Reek, Epps, Makuba, Mitchell, and DeJean, and probably Michael Carter. Those 5 better be ready to play at least 90% of snaps, and then Michael Carter, mixes in probably 50% of the time when they're mixing the scheme up. The rest of them, I hope we have to see them less than 10% of the time.
Coop and Q never come off the field. So we know that they're going to play, unless injuries happen, they're going to play 100% of this time. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Final preseason game against the Bengals this Friday. Roster cuts have to be done by 6 p.m. Sunday. And then it gets real. And then they have 2 weeks to get ready, week and a half, 2 weeks to get ready for the Washington Commanders on September 13th. So since we're not going to be able to do our final 53-man roster, we're going to take a couple of minutes. Who are some of the back end of the roster guys that you have making the team right now, Connor? Obviously we know the starters. We know Jalen, Saquon. We know all of them. Devontae, Makai. We know all of them. Who are some guys that you can see potentially making the roster, at least initially? And obviously what the initial 53-man looks like won't be what the 53-man looks like when we get to September 13 against Washington.
Well, I think Jake Majors makes it. I think, he has proven that he can be reliable interior offensive line depth, and he has versatility. Kendall surprised me with showing versatility. I didn't think he'd do anything but center, but the fact that he's moved around a bit is a positive. And then Willie Lampkin, that gives you a surefire, interchangeable 3 interior offensive linemen. But Jake Majors at the beginning of this was not on my radar. And now he's definitely on my radar versus a guy like Miles Hinton, Cam Williams, some of the guys I had on my initial 53-man likely won't be there now based on this. For defensively is where it's more interesting. I like Uar Bernard. I also really like Joshua Waru. I have both of them now making the final 53-man. I think you've shown enough, and I think with that 3rd preseason game, you're going to have shown enough that there could be a defensive coordinator or an interior defensive line coach who says, I can work with that. I can do something with that. Get him on this roster. And they get him on the roster and they figure things out. It's going to take a couple years. I get it. I guess it depends on what you want to prioritize. And I guess, like you said, the benefit here is the Eagles aren't necessarily deep for the future at edge. Adebike's on a 1-year deal. Epinesa would be on a 1-year deal. Nolan Smith's on a 1-year deal plus an option. And Jalix Hunt's due for an extension. So beyond next year, it's very questionable at the edge position. So if I really had to pick, if you would tell me I had to pick one of the two, it would be Waru, because our interior defensive line depth and future looks a lot brighter. And obviously some of those guys, key players are locked up on the interior of the defensive line. This is Bernard. The story's nice. The story's cool. And he's really flashed and impressed. There's a lot. You can tell there's a lot more work to be done with Bernard than necessarily Joshua Waru. So Waru, I have making it as well. And then I agree with you. No other cornerback has shown me anything. McWilliams, although he's a nickelbacker and stuff, Gushkin, some of those guys haven't really shown me much like Shaun Wade. I would love to see Shaun Wade make the roster. And do I want to see him on the field during the regular season? Not necessarily, but there's something to work with there, I think. So those are 3 names for me: Majors, Waru, and Wade, that I think on the back end could surprise, and we could see somebody else cut that we might not have thought earlier.
I've talked highly of Willie Lampkin. I'm not going to use him as my offensive guy, but I definitely think he makes the team. I'm going to go, and
I think he's
iffy about this only. Yeah, I do too. And I'm going to go with this guy, even though I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to go Carson Steele. I just think that he has something there, and I think that he could help out on special teams somehow. Defensively, I do have Josh Weeru as well. Gushkin's a safety, so I think Gushkin has a chance because we're not heavy. Like, if Cole Wisniewski can't get healthy, he can make it. Gushkin can make it over him. But I still also think that we're going to bring in a safety from outside. I think Howie's not going to go with this group that he has. And Shaun Wade, as you said, I like what I've seen from him thus far. Maybe just let him see what he got. Can't be like Keely Ringo has a lot of the intangibles, but the physical tools, I'll say, but he cannot play. He's really good on special teams. Yes, I get that. But like if he's got to go out there to cover somebody, he can't move. He has no lateral movement. He's really big and lanky. Maybe move him to safety. I don't know. But they're my three guys. We'll see what happens. We'll definitely discuss it when we get together next before the regular season opener. We'll go over the 53-man roster and see if there were any surprises. I do think that they're going to probably be surprises, maybe a trade here and there. But whatever the 53-man roster looks like at 6 o'clock Sunday, it will not look like September 13th at 4:30 when the Eagles kick off against Washington.
Absolutely not. And the fact that Howie stayed so quiet in August when he hasn't been for the last half decade tells me that he's got to make a bang. He's got to make a splash. He itches there. I know how he's sitting there itching to do something. So he's definitely going to do something.
Yeah, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. But preseason over soon. Regular season gets ready to start in about, 19 days away. 19 days. We're in the teens now as the NFL regular season gets underway in 15 days when the Seattle Seahawks host the New England Patriots on Wednesday.
Before you take us home, LJ, tell me this. So Adams exploits, I don't see them keeping Steele. They don't have enough spots for running backs. In your I want to keep Steele scenario, are you keeping Steele and Shipley, or is Steele making it over Shipley?
I think they're going to keep Shipley. I think they'll keep both. And again, it's going to be tough, but I do think that I wanted it to be Dameon Pierce, but he has shown nothing. Because I thought Dameon Pierce could be a good third back, could also help out in the return game, but he obviously hasn't been healthy or he hasn't been on the field, whatever. So I just think that they'll keep both. I don't think that if they cut Steele, I just think somebody would pick Steele up, but if they do cut him and he doesn't get picked up, they could bring him back on the practice squad. I just think that he has something there, and I get it. It was against backups, and we're not going to ask him to tote the ball 25 times. It's obviously going to be Saquon and Tank Bigsby, but maybe he can go out there and return kicks or something, give them a spark there. So I think they do keep them both if that's the way to go. But again, my addendum to that is they're probably going to have to keep 4 tight ends. And if they keep 4 tight ends, they can't keep 4 running backs.
No, I absolutely agree. It is that time of year for us and for all Eagles fans that anyone we cut is going to get picked up by somebody else. But we know that is not the reality.
We cut DeQuan Wright and somebody else, and DeQuan Wright got claimed by the Browns, was playing in a preseason game, and now he's going to freaking LSU. So,
they both got picked up on that day that we waived them. They both got picked up. So that, I guess, should put in your mind that there are I would bet there's at least 2 guys who we waive that are going to get picked up and not be able to make it back to our practice squad. I almost guarantee it.
Probably.
I'm not going to go to the extent of
I think that's the big difference. I'm going to put it this way. It's the big difference now between when they used to do the cut downs multiple times. You're going from 90 to 53. That's 37 guys times 32 teams. That's 1,000 players all getting cut at the same time. And then you have to sort through that. Then you have to pick, make claims if you're making claims. Then you have to get your practice squad. That's why a lot of the guys that you cut, the teams cut, they bring them back for the practice squad because you don't have as much time as you used to in the past. So we'll see what happens. But I am so looking forward to this regular season starting. It's an even number year. We know what happens in even number years. 22, 24, we went to the Super Bowl. 24, we won. 26, let's hope for the same. And I think we potentially, before the regular show to go to preview the regular season opener, we got to do our prediction show. So we might be able to get that in within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I definitely think this is not going to be the last you see of us. We got to react to the 53-man, and we got to do our full prediction where we tell you who's making it in the AFC, who's making it in the NFC, and who's winning the Super Bowl. Probably both going to be completely wrong, but we're going to do it anyways because it's a yearly tradition. So I'm sure you're going to see us back.
Yep. So thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hours. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network at Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the comments in the chat. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Got to keep warming up here. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby.